VA disability claim fraud is a lot bigger than what you think it is, and I'm going to show you just that from this OIG report that was published January 4th of 2024. And within that huge report, there are two paragraphs, okay? Two paragraphs that really paint the picture on fraudulent DBQs and how they're being used, the process of that. And I really hope people listen because the sample size was only 200. And think about it. How many claims are submitted with public DBQs? A sample size of 200, 57 of those, over a quarter, 57 of those were found someone was altering the DBQ. That's a huge deal, okay? And don't take my word for it. I'm just going to pull up the OIG report right now. Here it is. As always, this is going to be below in the pinned comments. Already have it queued up. But here we go. On page 28, let me get rid of this highlight here. On page 28, now this paragraph talks about indications of fraud, and there are 5 of them. One of them is altering the DBQ. That is a really, really, really big deal. And the second paragraph goes into what that alteration actually looks like, how it goes down. So we'll read the first paragraph, then head into the second paragraph. The OIG team identified instances of potential fraud during this review and provided those instances to the OIG Office of Investigations. Got it. The instances were provided because the review identified numerous claims with public questionnaires, public DBQs, with indications of fraud risk. And again, there's 5 of them, such as signs of alteration. That's what we're going to talk about here. Contact information discrepancies. Examiner's address on the questionnaire was more than 100 miles away from the veteran's address for in-person exams. So on each DBQ, it asks if it's a telehealth appointment, if it was in person or not. Obviously, there's an issue when you annotate, you meaning the provider, annotates in person, but it was not in fact in person. 4, other evidence of record contradicted the findings of the questionnaire. That's key there. You have to have evidence for the DBQ. And 5, the veteran refused to report for VA examination. And I'm an idiot, there's 6. And the assignment of 100% disability rating occurred without evidence of current medical treatment confirming the severity of the condition. Boom. Indications of fraud. And here we go. We're going to dive into alteration because the second paragraph, and if this is true, it is not going to be good news whatsoever. It's really going to blow the lid off of this fraud thing. So additionally, the OIG identified 57 public questionnaires representing over a quarter. That's where I got the 200 number from. 57 is over a quarter of the total questionnaires completed during this review that contained similar, and here we go. This is the part you need to key in on, that contains similar or identical language. Our DBQs should not contain similar or identical language because they are based on our unique evidence. Let's just hypothetically say that they did, okay, for by chance. Now, the issue is the similar and identical language came from 3 things here: completed by different examiners for different veterans across multiple states. So you could see how examiners would be difficult to collude with each other with different evidence, different veterans all over the United States of America. That would be difficult. But wait, there's more. These 57 questionnaires represent a risk that these examinations could be completed, at least partly, and here we go, I'm going to say this verbatim because I'm not getting sued, by an entity other than the examiner listed on the examiner's certification and signature sections for each questionnaire. That might seem like a nothing burger statement, but I'm telling you, if you look at from completed all the way down to this sentence here, it is absolutely game changing, because if that is true, what they're implying is that veteran has a relationship with an entity. And again, I'm saying that word specifically. You can figure out why. The veteran has a relationship with an entity. It's probably a contract, if I had to guess. That entity farms the veteran out to various DBQ providers, Nexus-led providers. There's nothing wrong with a private Nexus or a private DBQ. There's nothing wrong with that. And then what's suggested on the OIG report is instead of the DBQ going from provider to VA, it goes from provider, the examiner, to the entity. And at some point, it's altered prior to being submitted with that veteran's claim. Now, I have a few worries. I'm worried about a few things with that. And I'm telling you, if this is true, I have no idea what's going to happen, but I can tell you it's not going to be good at all. These entities are not identifiable by the veteran's claim itself. But sure, the VA can ask these examiners who contacted them, what affiliates they have, and find out the source of the entity. And to be honest with you, that would not be that hard at all. If fraud is involved, and the fraud was not committed by the examiner, you could bet your life that the examiner is not going to willingly take that fall, and they will, very fast too, give up the information of where they sent the DBQ after the exam. So finding the entity would not be that hard whatsoever. The bigger issue is, okay, well, if the entity can't be directly tied to the veteran because they are a entity or a consultation business and don't submit claims for the veteran, does that mean that the veteran is present and accounted for and will take the fall for fraud? I mean, it's their claim. They submitted that claim and all the evidence by themselves, right? An entity surely did not help them. Surely there is some level of responsibility there on the veteran side. And that's when I really do start to question what would happen. No, I'm not a lawyer, but I do know that fraud is fraud and the government's not going to play around with that. So going back to the sample size, if 57 out of 200 meet this standard of alteration on DBQ from an entity, how many do you think of the millions of claims that have been submitted the past 5 years? Right? That's a very scary thought. How many of past 5 years with public DBQs meet the criteria of alteration? That's a super scary thought. And everyone thinks I'm crazy anytime I bring up fraud, but I'm telling you, listen to me right now. Seriously, if you use an entity, okay, in order to protect yourself, what I would do personally, I would double down on whatever evidence that drove you to that rating. I would make sure you have that evidence ready to go right now. Not joking. I'm going to give you two scenarios, okay? Both suck, but one's obviously better than the other. So veteran A and veteran B. Veteran A used an entity, has a fraudulent DBQ, is being prosecuted, whatever that looks like, which by the way, I don't know. And the only evidence stating they deserve that rating is derived from the fraudulent DBQ. Okay, that's scenario one, veteran A. Scenario two, veteran B also used an entity, has a fraudulent DBQ with that claim, is being prosecuted, and again, whatever that looks like, I have no idea. But this veteran has other evidence that supports the award that was granted by the VA. Which one looks better? Okay. I think this one definitely looks better. Fraud is fraud, no doubt. But if the entity, and I'm trying to use my words careful here, if the entity is the one altering the DBQ and submitting that, or giving it to the veteran or submitting it on behalf of the veteran, that's a whole other can of worms. Everyone keeps telling me that entities do all these great things, which they do. They do good things. I'm not saying they don't. There might be a process and a method to those great things that points to that success. And I'm going to leave that there. Okay. I'm telling you that fraud is real, and entities, as noted here by the OIG report, not by me, they're doing something. Something's going on. Now, I don't want to get sued, so I'm leaving it right there. These are the facts. That's why I read directly from the OIG report. This is not my opinion. It's from the OIG report. You can hate the VA for this. You can hate the VA for that. You can do that. All that's fine and dandy. But this OIG report is true. And if you used an entity, all right, as noted by this OIG report here, it really does not look good. Again, this is on page 28. You can read this paragraph here. Those are the indicators of fraud risk. This second paragraph, starting with additionally down to the next page, is really where the bread and butter is at. That's all I got.